Welcome to Life After Fame podcast. Just imagine 70,000 fans cheering your name when you've scored the winning touchdown. Imagine standing on stage looking out at the crowd, rocking out to that chart-busting song you created. The applause and recognition you received for your masterful acting performance in that latest blockbuster movie. And then, one day, the cheering stops. This podcast is all about catching up with these stars of yesterday to find out where they're at now and who they are as people, beyond the stardom. This is a true human interest podcast about the people we loved to root for. And now, your hosts, Joe Mastriona and Joe Boglino.
We are thrilled to welcome Rhonda Blanford-Green, a 2016 Colorado Sports Hall of Famer and a former world-class hurdler, to our Life After Fame podcast. Throughout her career, Rhonda had an impeccable record, having never lost in indoor and outdoor hurdles. She was also a world record holder at one point. When we first met Rhonda, her incredible positive energy was infectious. And after speaking with her, Joe-M and I felt invigorated and ready to sprint around the neighborhood ourselves and do some hurdles over our neighbor's fence. That's a true story. Following her track and field career, Rhonda made it her mission to break the glass ceiling for women in sports. In 2017, she became the first female commissioner of the Colorado High School Activities Association and the first Black woman to lead an association in the National Federation of High Schools' 100-year history. Her incredible achievements led her to her own induction into the 2016 Colorado Sports Hall of Fame, where she was the first African American to be honored. Rhonda's passion for athletics and her commitment to empowering women and minorities in sports has seen her represent various organizations, including the National Federation of State High School Associations, the NCAA, U.S. Sports, as an athlete, captain, panelist, and ambassador. With an impressive record of being an 18-time All-American and 4-time NCAA champion, Rhonda now serves as the president of the USA Cheer Board of Directors. So get ready, get set to feel energized and motivated as we welcome Rhonda to our Life After Fame podcast.
Today, we want to welcome Rhonda Blanford-Green. Rhonda, welcome to the spotlight of Life After Fame.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Now, before we get into some things we'd like to talk about, and we talk about the 18-time All-American, 4-time NCAA champion, member of 3 national championships, one of like 3 athletes in the history of the program there to win the same outdoor events for all 4 years, and the first African-American inducted into the 2016 Colorado Sports Hall of Fame. We're going to talk about a lot of that stuff. I have a personal question for you. So you being a world-class track athlete, you obviously know how to run. I've never been known for my quick ability at all. And I think I've found out that's because I'm a heel to toe runner. I never knew that you ran differently than that. Is that true? How are you supposed to run on the track?
I think, so this interview is going to be full of authenticity and honesty. I didn't know people ran heel toe. So I would have to say I am a sprinter, short, sweet. Makeup still looks good when you cross the finish line, ready for pictures. But it's all been toe for me since I was little. So I think probably as we get older, the heel should probably come down first to absorb the shock before it hits our bodies. But when you're a world-class runner, you don't run heel toe.
That is so crazy. So you just go from the balls of your feet you just stay on the balls of your feet? Is that what you do?
Yeah, your heel does hit. I mean, as a hurdler, there's shock absorption, right? And placement. And so I would say your heel is a stabilizer and a balancer, but it is definitely not for propulsion.
Wow. I don't even understand the physics
Rhonda,
of that.
Joe B, I'm telling you, he probably is the slowest guy I've ever seen run. I love him to death. He doesn't
love me that much.
But that is not his skill set. He is slower than mud, like he's running in molasses.
I think there comes an age point in our lives where slow is
Rhonda.
good.
No, Rhonda, I know. But he was running like this at 20.
Oh.
And it's only gotten worse.
Yeah.
So, he's 50. I don't even see him run now. I mean, just watch.
I had great ambition,
slow.
and it really left me at the crib because no one
I
ever
think
me how to
race
run.
Walker. Maybe Race Walker was your event, because they do heel toe.
Well, it's a revelation to me because I
go.
never knew there was any sort of different way that you planted your foot on the ground. Honestly, I'm going to have to go out in my front yard. I'll do some stretching here and go give it a shot. But it's going to be a comedy show, that's for sure.
You're going to have to report back to us, Joe, on
Yes.
this. And maybe video it so that Rhonda and I can see it and just we can judge it then from there. Yeah. And nicely. I mean, we'll probably nicely judge it, but I might throw a couple shots at her. Rhonda is a sweetheart, and I know she'll be nice. But I'll throw you some shots.
So, Rhonda, you've had an incredible career, and in high school and in college in the 80s, and I think you even extended that into the 90s, and that's why we're so happy to have you because of your accomplishments, and we wanted to kind of touch upon some of those. And when we had some preliminary discussions with you off screen here, you really said some things that caught our attention. And I'm not exactly sure where to start. So we'll just pick one and go with that. Your career in the collegiate level, you ran at the University of Nebraska, and individually, you never lost a race.
Individually, I never lost a conference hurdle race, but obviously over the course of 4 years with hundreds of races, you're not going to win them all. I was a multi-event athlete when I went to college. I was ranked number 1 in the nation in the hurdles going into my first year of college out of high school, probably 3rd in the nation in long jump. Sprints, I was ranked in the top 5 in the nation. So as a multi-event, it just materialized to be a world-class hurdler once I got to college. When you're jumping 19.8 and you're like 7th on the chain at University of Nebraska, your coach doesn't waste you in the long jump anymore.
So Rhonda, what made you decide, because you're from Colorado, you went to high school in Colorado at Aurora Central. What made you go to Nebraska? Why did you choose Nebraska? Because you're a world-class athlete.
Well, I'm going to tell you. So I am an Army brat. So my dad was 20-some years in the service. So I was actually born in Hawaii, lived in Japan. We moved to Colorado right after my freshman year of high school. I went to Lathrop High School in Fairbanks, Alaska. And when we moved to Colorado, I always say that athletics is a connector for an Army kid who moves every 3 years, right? And sports tends to bring friendships instantly. I was a cheerleader, also in student leadership, being involved in a lot of things. But I actually visited on my recruit trips some of the supposedly top track and field colleges in the nation. Didn't take my 4th trip, started to get homesick. I hadn't even left yet, but I started thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to be homesick. And I want my mom, my family to be able to come to my track meets. I want to be able to come home. And I signed with Nebraska sight unseen. I had never even been to the state of Nebraska. And I tell everybody I probably should have done better in geography because I didn't know one state over there was humidity and no mountains. So when I stepped off the plane, I went, what did I just do?
What did I do? So did you ever have any regrets when you did step off that plane? And
absolutely not. We were national champions, and if we're going to tell stories, the University of Nebraska set the world record, our relay team, in the sprint medley relay. We ran against UCLA, which had FloJo and Alice Brown and all the Olympians that you know. And so we set the world record, set the NCAA record, and we were 3 times national champions out of Nebraska. So I always think fate has something to do with decisions. You don't know that, but oh gosh, never regret it.
That's awesome. Did you make decision to go to Nebraska partly because, of course, it was closer to home? Did you have knowledge of the team that was there and thinking, yeah, I want to go join that team because they've got X person I'm going to be running with or coach or whatnot?
Sure. Well, first of all, my recruiting time was back before technology, right? So you would get packets in the mail and there was a certain time that coaches could call your home to recruit. And my mom fell in love with Coach Pepin from the University of Nebraska. I'm an only girl of 4 kids. And I think my mom was just more worried about, will that person take care of my daughter? Will they make sure that she walks away with a piece of paper and a degree and combine athletics with also what that would look like, in the future? And so he won my mother over first. And then building that relationship, whether that be over a phone or they'd show up at your track meets and you would just get a sense of, do I want to run for this person? Does this person have my best interest at heart? And Coach Pepin and his team came away with that. And yeah, I did a little bit of homework about the team, but the time that their best hurdler had run, I had already surpassed that in high school. So I knew that I would come in as their number 1 hurdler, probably contribute to their relays. Thought I would be a long jumper there. Didn't want to be a quarter miler on the 4x4 there, but that eventually happened sometimes. So yeah, it was a combination of a lot of things, but it was really about relationships and feeling like I would be a part of something bigger than myself from day one.
So I would think that most goals of most track athletes, especially ones that have the ability to achieve the type of scores and a success you have, want to go to the Olympics. What was your experience with toying with that and the Olympic trials in the 80s?
Well, my first Olympic trial experience was in 1984. I was 17 years old maybe and made it to the semifinal round. And really didn't have aspirations at that time of being an Olympian. It was just so exciting to be a part of the experience, right? I got a picture with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That would seem like the highlight because that's what's still in my folder. And then as I progressed and realized that I did have realistic aspirations to be a member of the team, that was probably my junior year, I really started focusing on the sport, the event, and actually made some decisions after my senior year of competition to move to California, trained with some of the top athletes in the world, with one of the best hurdle coaches in the world. And so that was my experience until conversations started to extend past what natural physical abilities you had to make the team versus enhancing those, and just my line of integrity, and I just couldn't do it. And so the last couple months prior to the trials, I came back to Colorado and trained in Colorado. But I was living the high life. I was living in Malibu Colony, had an amazing shoe contract, and I was just training 24/7 for that dream.
It's got to be pretty tough because you're referring to doping and that type of thing that was occurring. And I think it's probably still is. It's got to be pretty difficult, right? When you have maintained that line of integrity, like you just mentioned, but you know that others haven't, and you're competing against that. It's got to be pretty tough, I would think.
It is. And I don't even know that, even though someone would say, well, the person that I was training with would say, well, everyone's doing it, right? And I just felt that wasn't for me, because maybe I was being unrealistic about whether or not I could do it naturally or unnaturally, whatever. But I don't know. I don't regret that decision at any point. And I didn't worry about what other people were doing as much as it hurt me that my coach didn't believe that I could do it without additional. So I guess I've always surrounded myself with people that elevated me to the best that I could be. And then to have that conversation at a breakfast, I said, I'm going to give myself a chance to think about it. And within 2 weeks, I was packed and heading back to Denver. So I think it was just him not believing that we could achieve that goal together without additional. So I think it goes back to my relationships, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's tough because I can only imagine you were probably 22, 23 years old at that point?
Yes.
And so 2 things. First, that's really difficult to hear from a coach that they don't believe in you enough that you would need to use doping to get over the top. And I can imagine that was probably devastating. The other part that I really want to highlight is, man, your strength and your integrity and how well you were grounded. You were so grounded. You knew who you were at 22, 23. That's pretty impressive because I feel like I had no idea who I was at that age. Most young kids don't because you're still learning lots about life. And to have that perspective with your worth, your self-worth, because I think that that's the issue there. When someone chooses to, and I'm not knocking them, I'm not throwing shade at anyone. We all make mistakes and choices that we don't like or maybe regret, but we do it because we don't feel worthy enough, right? To do drugs and put drugs in your body to perform, I would think that is not feeling good enough about yourself. And I don't mean as the athlete. Right. I mean as about you as a whole person. You decided, hey, I'm Rhonda that runs. I'm not the runner that equals Rhonda. And I just find that very impressive.
Thank you. And I would say in no way am I saying that anybody who made the team did something additional or extra because, the Olympic trials, unlike some countries, the United States takes the top 3 on that day at that time. And for me, I hit the last hurdle, right? So still easily could have made the team. And that's a whole nother story about staying in your lane and staying in your own race, right? But I mean, for me, I lived in Malibu Colony. I played tennis with Sting. I saw Johnny Carson. You can get caught up in that lifestyle, and someone maybe who isn't as, maybe they can be swayed by all of the strappings that go along with being on the team or being an Olympian or being a professional athlete. There's a lot of privilege that comes with that. And for me, I have to give credit to my parents and my coaches and everybody who was along with me on this journey, that for me, those extra things, just, it wasn't worth selling. I wanted to sleep well at night, knowing that if I made it or didn't make it, it was done in a way that I could hold true to. And I tell everybody, I sleep well at night. I did make the team, but it caused a whole nother path for me in life. And I never want anyone to think that everybody who makes it big has done something, because there are a lot of people that train hard, work hard, and on that day, at that time, during that event, it was their time.
But you know what's awesome about hearing that? We've heard it on a number of occasions on this show, the decision to choose self versus ambition. We've got Wade Manning that we've interviewed that talks about hurting he got injured and he was really pressured to take, was it cortisone or some Novocaine? Yes. And he said no, because he chose his health. And now we have you doing the same thing. I mean, the ambition, the dream is there. Man, if you just, come on, let's go, take a little bit of this and you'll increase your run by, a half a second, which will get you in. The temptation has to be enormous. And what we've seen with you and these others is that you decided, you know what? I'm more important than selling myself out for another chance to be on the field.
Yes. And I would say, just my short time in California, I was marketable. I did 3 commercials, had the opportunity. It was a path to some doors being open had I made the team. I was sponsored by a bank that absolutely paid for, I didn't work. When I say that in a great way. It was like people believed in me and said, you know what? We want you to focus on nothing but track and field. I had a shoe company. His name is Bill Fickey. He used to own a shoe store line in Colorado called Fleet Feet. I was one of his employees, and he said, you know what? It was about a year out from the Olympic trials. He goes, don't ever come to work again. I will pay you the salary that you were making. I just want you to completely focus. So I had a team around me, right? So in making those decisions, you're going, okay, am I letting this person down? Am I letting this person down? And at the end of the day, when I tell that story, everybody is just like, yes, right decision. And I didn't make the team, wasn't one of the top 3, but again, I just praise that my journey took me in a different direction, and maybe that was the direction it was meant to be.
Rhonda, did you ever think about changing coaches at that moment and or staying in California? What was the reasoning for not staying in California? Obviously, you didn't make the team, but why come back to Colorado? Come on. You're playing tennis. Sting? How dare you, Rhonda? How dare you? I love Sting.
So do I. I looked at the window of the guest house. I said, is that Sting? And then I pretended like I just kind of casually walked out there. And I do play tennis. Actually, this conversation is life after fame. Well, I just started at 2.5 and advanced to 4.0 and made it to nationals about 10 years ago. Wow. So, I love tennis. So yeah, I did change coaches, but I did want to come home. We were replicating what it would look like at the Olympic trials. I had an amazing coach, which, if we're being honest, I eventually married. But yeah, I don't regret any part of that decision. Not at all. Not at all.
So Rhonda, let's talk about the subject of look good, do good. If you want to perform in business, or if you have something seriously you want to go after, you dress the part. Well, I think the same thing holds true on the track. Can you talk a little bit about that and how the preparation for that makes a big impact on performance and how you feel when you get between the lines?
I think that my era, I'm going to call it an era. Is that what it's called? The 80s. I got to come out with the FloJos of the world, right? So we were very much into the aesthetics as much as we can look good and we can kick your butt. So it was kind of like that was our mantra back then. Like we wore the big hoop earrings, and I didn't do the nails, but FloJo did the nails. And it was a beautiful bunch of women.
Colorful outfits.
Yes, not only on the track, but just in athletics in general. We started to embrace you can be attractive, you can be feminine, you can be beautiful, you can have on the makeup, and you can still set a world record. And I think tennis embraced that too. If you started to see kind of the marketing in tennis and who stood out in tennis and swimming and all of the sports, it started to be that, yes, you can be feminine and beautiful and celebrate your womanhood and still come out competitive, look at your opponent and say, I'm taking you down.
Love it.
I think there's some truth to that. And in this world of COVID, with all of us working from our homes, and I'm basically trashy most of the time until I get on camera, then everything above looks pretty good. Everything below, you don't even want to see. But there is an absolute correlation, I think, between feeling like I look good and the confidence you bring to whatever you're approaching. I think your era did start it. It certainly still permeates through the sport, because when you watch the Olympics on the track, man, there are some track athletes that are looking to kill. And it's intimidating too, by the way. I'm not sure I'd have been able to handle that.
I call it stunning. I mean, when you look at some of the volleyball players, right? Back in and I keep going back to the 80s. So I was an outside hitter, and I was 5'8.5", and that was considered tall, right? And now I wouldn't even make a D1 team as an outside hitter at 5'8". They're building up 6'3", 6'4", and these women are walking with confidence. Back in the 80s, they'd hunch their shoulders, try to make themselves look small. Now they celebrate that they're 6'4", 6'3". And I think it's society to a certain extent, but just empowerment of each other to say, you walk proud at that 6'4". We're just starting to say that we just come all different shapes and sizes, and we're just celebrating that we can be beautiful and still be competitive. And I don't know that was the message prior to the 80s.
I've also seen a consistent theme coming from doing these shows. People who have achieved the type of success you have. And actually, if you think about it now in Colorado, it's almost a bullhorn from Deion Sanders, is this incredible feeling of belief. And I think you've even said it. You said that you just got to have it, but it's this, I don't know if I can articulate this rightly. I mean, it's every interview that we do with folks of your success level possess this incredible, unwavering belief.
And it's hard. I coached high school. I coached at the University of Wyoming, and I probably was on a track to become entrenched in the track world as a coach. And after my second year, I knew that wasn't going to be my path, because they didn't want it as much as I wanted it for them, right? So I think it's really hard to teach and to coach that internal fire and that passion that says, just because someone else hasn't done it, or just because, there's a record on the board. For me, a record on the board means I want my name beside it. And sometimes there's a certain amount of athletes are just happy to be a part of the team. And that just wasn't me. And that wasn't how I wanted to coach. So I knew that wasn't that path for me. But I think I've had this, and I'm going to tell a quick story, since I was in kindergarten, because I remember raising my hand all the time to be the one in charge of walking everybody to the cafeteria. I wanted to be in charge of cleaning the erasers. I wanted to be in charge of doing whatever. And even one time, my mom and dad will tell you the story. They came to parent-teachers conference, and my desk was on the outside of the classroom. We just can't get Rhonda to just So I haven't been a sheep walker for a long time.
I asked you what age. Yeah, you had that flip of switch to be that all-out competitor. So it was a kindergarten. It was amazing.
I think that's when it was documented.
Right.
Yeah, right. Could have been just at birth.
But I've always had that, and when I think about the teams, and again, there's a difference between arrogance and really talking about the impact and embracing the fact that is your personality. And I've always wanted to be the captain. Even on our national teams as a sophomore in Nebraska, I was voted by my teammates to be the captain. I was the captain throughout. I was the captain of our state championship team at Aurora Central when we won the state championships. I was the captain, co-captain on my cheerleading squads. So there's just this innate, and I don't know how to explain it, where you just want not to be in the front because you want the spotlight, but you want to be in the front because you're just a natural leader. If I'm done running the hurdle race, I'm over at the shot put yelling for my teammate. Okay, girl, you can give 2 inches. You can throw it a little bit further. And even one of my former employees, since I retired, texted me last week. She said, I just need a Rhonda TED Talk. And so, that's just kind of been my personality along the way. I said I should have been Oprah. I think I should have been Oprah.
Well, we've definitely gotten that from you. When we did our pre-talk and just got to know you, after we got off the talk, I'm going to tell you what I said to Joe. I said, man, I want to be Rhonda's friend. And I really heartfully mean that. I just want to be your friend because you are so positive. It's just your energy. And I love your energy. It is just this overwhelming feeling of positivity. Things are going to be all right. And you just by who you are, your words, you inspire the hell out of me, Rhonda. Oh. You really do. And I feel like I'm a leader as well. And hey, I've learned from lots of different coaches and masters. Surround yourself with people that are better than you. And man, I'm going to say it right here on the air. I'm not even waiting until off the air. I just want to be Rhonda's friend. I really do, because you're an amazing lady, and I just see so much value that you add to my life just barely knowing you right now. And I am so impressed with who you are.
Thank you. And I try, because I'm so blunt and honest. Not everybody loves that. You know what I mean? They want you to sugarcoat a situation or a conversation, and it's just not me. So I love hearing you say that, because there are people out there that say, whoa, she's a little bit too much for me, or she says XYZ. I don't have a good filter, but
me either. That's
once
probably
you're
why
friend,
I love you.
once you're a friend, it is like, I will go to the wall for you. And it's like you said, I surround myself with people that would go to the wall for me and will accept me for my faults. And they're not afraid to say, Rhonda, whoa, you handled that the wrong way. And I've learned over the years that I am humble enough to be able to go to someone and say, I handled that improperly. I should have said that a different way. I saw huge, that I crushed Rhonda. Your spirit in a way, and that bothers me. I mean, it'll be like a week later, I'll call someone that I barely know and say, you know what, that conversation didn't go the way I needed it to, and it's been bugging me for a whole week. Please accept my apology. I was trying to get the word that's always used with Rhonda is passion. Everybody says, she has so much passion.
And accountability, though. What you said right there, and Joe and I are the same. That's why we're best friends. And that's why we are so connected with you. We're all the same. We don't pull any punches. We're very authentic. We tell it like it is. And sometimes, it's rough for certain people. But when I do that same thing, I do go and I apologize. And I say, you know what? I'm sorry. If it's my kids, if it's a friend, it's a stranger, that, hey, I was a little over the top there. Yeah. But I really believe in that, because one, I'm human and I make mistakes and I screw up all the time. Yeah. But I'm not afraid to own up to those. And I love that quality about people, because it's accountability. And I think that's important. I think that's a big piece that's missing a lot of the times in this world, and not always pointing and blaming somebody else. Yes, I screw up.
Yes.
And I'm willing to say I did it, but I will tell you when you screw up. Yes. and that's the friendships that I want.
Absolutely.
We always have these hard talks sometimes, and it's talks out of, pure love. And I think I owe that to people, is to be straight with them.
Absolutely. And there's times I tell my kids I bow up, like I don't want to hear it. But then after I let it resonate for a little bit, I'm like, you know what? They told me that in my best interest. And either I can absorb it and start to look at how I change how that comes out of my mouth or how I respond. And usually it's my facial expressions. Like someone's talking, I go,
right.
And my daughter's like, why are you smirking? I'm like, I wasn't smirking. And
All right.
so anyway, I'm learning, and I love what you just said, because I think that takes time, right? Because it's a level of humble, and you humble yourself enough to know that you aren't right all the time, and you are still in learning mode to becoming a better person. And if that person brings it out of respect for trying to make you better, I can take it. I don't take criticism very well, but constructive criticism that's going to make me a better person, I absorb it, because you cannot be an athlete without having had constructive criticism. I had someone tell me how my fingers should be, how my elbows should be. I've been criticized with construction all of my athletic career. So I know I can take it. It's just the messenger in which the message is coming from is how I respond to it. And the people I love, I absorb it.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. You know, the whole key to being a great leader is being humble and being accountable. And if you can admit a mistake, how many real true leaders that you admire do that? Probably a lot of them. How many leaders who don't, you don't think too highly of them? An apology can come a long way from someone who's in leadership. Let me ask you this. Taking that leadership acumen that you have and the passion that you've had, you've taken a sledgehammer to the glass ceiling. Now, I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure I've ever really liked the term glass ceiling, because I think that it's been much more difficult to shatter. It has been a white male world here. I'm a white male. I think I can say that without offending anybody. And, I've never had to break through a ceiling, but I've always admired people who have had because of circumstance or situation. You've done that, Rhonda, throughout your career. You have a ton of firsts. The first commissioner of CHSAA here in Colorado, first African-American Hall of Fame, Colorado Sports Hall of Fame inductee, as well as many other things that you've done. But, confide in us a little bit about the fact that maybe my notion of the glass ceiling is BS, and it's actually a bit stronger and harder to break through.
I love how you put that. I just came from Alaska about a week and a half ago, and I spoke in Florida at a conference. And the majority of my audience, I would say 98%, were white males. And we were talking about how to support underrepresented groups to build a positive culture. I would say I don't sit in the commissioner's chair if it wasn't for a white male commissioner who decided in his career that he wasn't going to check all the historical boxes of who should sit in the assistant commissioner's chair, took a chance on this young Black female that brought so many different aspects to the job that weren't aligned with the regular check boxes. And he paid the price a little bit. But now we both go to lunch together and say, wow, 30 years later, you took a chance on me and I became who I am because you opened that door. So you are right. Business world, athletic world, using stats. So please know that I actually had to retain this for my speech. So it's not like I'm that smart and I'm just throwing this out, but 66% in the athletic world, in that world, they're run by white males. White males are in the decision-making seats. And for a person like myself to, quote, break a glass ceiling, it takes the support and the backing of that white male who's making those top decisions to decide to at least open the door. Then it's on me to then hone my skill sets, to learn the job, to allow them to give me the mentorship opportunities and the professional development it takes. So when that position opens up, there's no doubt that I'm the most qualified person for the position. So as much as it is a overused term, it takes a village for an underrepresented group, whether that be females, minorities, persons with disabilities, to break through that historical network, which is often white males. But it does take those relationships and someone feeling comfortable enough and bold enough to make those steps that are outside of the box that allows a person like me to have a chance. And then it's up to me to make sure that I continue to show that I have what it takes to do XYZ. So it's not a hand-me-down. It's not a tokenism. It's just someone giving someone a break. And underrepresented groups sometimes just need a break.
Well, and you probably felt that once you got that break, that you had to double perform to justify the decision. Chances are, I'll be honest with you, if I got the break, and I've had breaks, I don't think I ever felt that scrutiny. Okay, I got it. I deserve it. I'm just going to go on and do my gig. But I've never felt the pressure of having to extra perform, but I have a feeling you have.
We're conditioned. If we're talking honestly, any minority or female in a leadership position that is predominantly white male, you do have to, whether that's your own feeling that you have to do it or whether their actions have made you feel like you've had to do it, you do a little bit more because you don't want the criticism and you don't want the labeling of, oh, they needed color in here, or they needed a black female in here, or they needed a female on their board. So you do. Whether that's internalized from the time you're little, that it's a wake-up call, that there is an expectation that you would do more or you need to do more, it just follows you throughout. And it's not just being a type A personality. All colors and all genders are type A personalities. I had many, many examples during the pandemic when I was leading Colorado high school athletics through the pandemic, where misogyny, where discrimination, where hit me directly in the face. And it was a wake-up call. And I didn't realize that I was doing more as much. I had to explain my decisions more. I had to demonstrate. There were people that wanted to know how my brain worked to get to a certain place and that I should share everything and they should have input. And I'm not sure that happened with a lot of male leaders, black or white, throughout this. I felt more gender questioning around decision making during the pandemic than I did color or, anything to do with my race. I felt like women in leadership roles that had to make some pretty tough decisions.
Rhonda, any idea? How do we change this? I know we are slowly changing it. Slowly. With, like you said, the gentleman that gave you that break. I've got 2 young girls. What's the advice that you give to them and other young ladies or just women in general to help us change that and make a difference from your perspective?
I think we just keep chipping away. I think conversations like this are critical to just discussion. I think sometimes people shy away from even discussing tough conversations around gender inequities, around racial inequities. For me, I think it's just having a conversation so we can understand, right? But as a father of young girls, I can only speak from my experience. And then when I have the opportunity to do girls in leadership conferences, it's just about empowering them to be okay with who they are and what they bring to the table. And that has to be enough. And then if what we determine individually by ourselves isn't enough, then you go back and you enhance your skills. I think we talked about this before we went on air. I'm retired. I have enough years. I could be sitting on a beach in Mexico and never having to pick up a phone or answer an email that doesn't tell me that my Amazon package is on my front porch, right? So I tell you, I went back to school in July because I was given this opportunity. When I announced my retirement, I had multiple offers to do things on my terms. And one was to be able to speak nationally around topics of diversity, inclusion, and building cultures that everybody feels like they matter. And I had been so far removed, being the commissioner, from the current terminology that is appropriate to have these conversations. So I went back to Cornell University and got certificated in DEI. I would strongly suggest that you take a technology class first before you go into these things, but they had enough millennials that helped me get through it. But I just needed, no different than preparing for a track race, I needed to make sure I had all the puzzle pieces in place before I put myself out there in the public again. So it is about feeling that confidence, empowering your daughters, but then making sure that they have all the resources to have success when they step into those different non-traditional fields that women don't go into.
Rhonda, what kind of impact do you want to leave being the president of USA Cheer Board of Directors currently? That was just another glass ceiling panel that you just smashed through last year. When you sit there and you're sitting there, and again, you're going to be up against some scrutiny, of course, but when you look back on however long you're going to maintain this role, what's the dimples that you want to leave all over that organization?
Wow. We talked about this. Everybody doesn't have the story that I have. I have just been tremendously blessed to have people along my professional journey, my personal journey, that have provided opportunities for me to bring my passion to the forefront. And USA Cheer was one such organization. I've served on their board for years, never even contemplated anything more than that. And when I announced my retirement, a conversation happened about moving into that role, because USA Cheer is looking to have stunt, which is an arm of cheer, be recognized by the Olympic Committee. Currently is already recognized by D2, and they're looking at doing some stuff with D1 and D3, which also helps Title IX. So it was just a natural fit. It's a sport that embraces all body types, nationalities, racial backgrounds. It's just a sport that there's a place for everyone. And then you talk about providing more opportunities for girls and women at the collegiate level, the high school level, that eventually leads to whatever profession they're going to have after the last gun goes off, after the last routine is done. And it was just a natural fit for where I felt like I needed to be at this time. And that door opened. And so I'm just overjoyed about having the opportunity to work with USA Cheer and International Cheer. But there's a lot of things I said yes to in December when I wasn't sure what retirement would look like, that they may be getting some resignation letters here next month.
Hey, part of the process.
Reevaluating. That's okay. Hey, sometimes it's okay to say yes and then think about it and then say no. I've got a question for you, Rhonda, because like I mentioned, just how positive you are, leader focused. Have you ever lost your mojo in life at any point in time? Have you ever felt like, damn, I just lost my mojo? Have you ever felt that? And if you did, how'd you get it back?
We're going to go a little deep on this one, but started dating my husband when I was 22 years old, and he passed away. It would be 2 years last week. And that almost broke me. Grief is a emotion that you won't feel until it is personal to you. And, you guys are both married. You know this. When you have someone who loves you unconditionally, is not insecure in any manner, and is proud to see you break glass ceilings or to have new doors open for everybody else. Because I stand on the shoulders of many women, right? They may not have been the first African American this or that, but I am definitely standing on their shoulders because I haven't had to burn a bra and I haven't had to march. And so they've done the heavy lifting. And then I'm doing a level of lifting. And then those that will come after me will do the lifting. So I wanted to say that. But in terms of losing my mojo, that grief process, which I still feel like I'm in, I'll look out a window of a plane on the way somewhere and it hits me. And I'm like, where did that come from? There's no, they always say, oh, it's a smell, it's a song, it's this or it's that. No, it's just this random, you're driving to get gas and all of a sudden something just hits you and you just go, because I think some people will say I'm sensitive. I don't cry a lot. I felt like I've cried more in the last 2 years over the most mundane things, but it hits me in a weird way. But I think I lost my mojo there for probably about 6 months or so. And the job and getting Colorado high school through pandemic probably saved me in terms of not feeling sorry for myself and really trying to find out who I was without that part in my life since I was 22 years old. Your best friend, your sounding board, your lover, your lockdown Netflix binging, popcorn, devastating. Chinese ordering bud, right? And so it's I feel like 2 years, and I'm going to say this, if we're all talking honestly, I thought I could do it. And the job was overwhelming at the time. We were always changing based on health guidance and school districts, what they would and wouldn't allow, what facilities. So it was just a crazy time period that I'd wake up at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm sending emails. And so I really think the job saved me at that time, but I really went to see someone at some point because I was mopping floors at 2 o'clock in the morning just to get rid of that, whatever that was. I didn't know if it was nervous energy, if it was just, I didn't want to think about it, but truly I had the cleanest floors in Colorado. I promise you that. The person that I went to talk to said, okay, first of all, within 5 minutes, this is what she said. Listen, type A, you don't get to determine how long grief lasts. You are used to setting goals for yourself. You're used to obtaining them, and then you move on to the next. This isn't something that you get to say, okay, in 4 months, I'm going to feel like this. In 6 months, I'm going to feel like this. You are going to have to let the process go as it needs to go. And you're going to have to find coping skills. And it's not mopping floors at 2 o'clock in the morning in order to get back to the person that you were. And so that was a long answer to your question about awesome. Have I lost my mojo? But that was probably the most debilitating thing that's ever happened in my life. And I feel like I'm still in recovery from that. But you know what? I just got back from a trip last night and I could look out the window and I could see the clouds and I could see the sun setting, and I didn't have that anxiety-filled emotion that I would have had a year ago. So I don't believe that time heals. And I know that that's a saying that everybody says, but I do believe that time gives you the ability to create coping skills that help you get through those moments, and you do start to feel them coming. But I don't know that time heals as much as it just gives you a chance to try to figure out how that's your reality is going to look at that point.
In a sense, the length of recovery, the depth of recovery is the honor that is given to the relationship that you had. And it's heartbreaking to hear that. You know, the anchor, when someone passes who is your best friend like that, they leave, your anchor has left, and now you're in a boat without an anchor. I can tell you that
Amazon loves me though, because there's nobody here to check me.
So do Joe and Joe. You know, you talked to, we're the presidents of the Rhonda Blanford-Green fan club. So we got a lot of love for you.
You guys are amazing.
Well, thank you.
Rhonda, we want to thank you so much for joining us today. We are so blessed to have you on the show and just to connect with you. And I know that our listeners are going to absolutely love what was talked about and discussed today, and they can learn a lot, and that's huge for us. So
yeah,
thank you.
Thanks,
so
Rhonda.
much.
It's my pleasure and honor.
What an incredible interview we had with the remarkable Rhonda Blanford-Green, a true glass ceiling breaker. This episode was a perfect blend of inspiration, truth, and heartfelt moments. We were genuinely touched by Rhonda's stories of love, friendship, perseverance, and the hard lessons she learned along her journey. It's safe to say that Rhonda has become a cherished friend and a valued part of our lives here at Life After Fame. Rhonda's achievements as an African-American woman in sports and the professional world are nothing short of extraordinary. Through her accomplishments, she taught us the importance of running our own race in life. After listening to this interview, you can't help but feel empowered, knowing that you, too, can achieve anything you set your mind to. If you'd like to learn more about Rhonda and USA Cheer, visit usacheer.org. You can also connect with her on social media through her Facebook profile at facebook.com/Rhonda.Blanford-Green or on Instagram at Blanford-Green, the number 1. We want to express our deepest gratitude to our Life After Fame members and community for tuning in to our show. Your support means the world to us, and we truly love and appreciate each and every one of you. Life After Fame is a true human interest podcast aiming to entertain, educate, inspire, and foster a sense of community among all of us fellow human beings. We hope you thoroughly enjoyed this episode. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button to stay updated and gain access to previous episodes and exciting new content. You can find us on our website at lifeafterfamenow.com or by subscribing to our YouTube channel, Life After Fame Now Podcast, or any other platform where podcasts are available. Join us next Tuesday for another captivating story as we welcome former Dallas Cowboy and Denver Bronco, Wade Manning, to the show. He will share his incredible path to the NFL and his journey from pro player to his life after fame. On behalf of our guest on this episode, Rhonda Blanford-Green, and my co-host Joe B., I'm Joe M., wishing you peace, love, and abundance. See y'all next week.